Welcome to Be in Tune. Join me, your host Darien, and my producer Joab, as we have conversations that deepen our connection with our higher power, ourselves, and the world around us. So, get ready to tune in, turn up that volume, and welcome to the Be in Tune podcast.
So when was the last time we did a pod? Was it at the beginning of this month?
Well, when we recorded, honestly, I have to go back in my calendar. I want to say it was like end of last month. No lie.
Are you serious?
I'm going to check right now. I'm pretty sure it was end of last month.
And you know what?
Yes.
It was
Thursday the 27th. We recorded the last episode that just went out.
And here I'm thinking, nah, Joab, I just saw you the other day. But yes, I saw you, but we didn't record a podcast.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. No wonder I'm so I forgot. Antsy, is that the word? Is that the one I wanted, the word I want to use? Mm-hmm. Eager, thank you. You know, this is why I'm so eager. I'm like, all right, let's just do one. Like, because today you and I are just testing out a new platform. And you're like, oh, we're recording one. I was like, yeah, I thought that was the plan. Mm-hmm. So we're here. What up, Joab?
I'm doing good. What's going on, Darien?
Well, you know, this weekend was kind of festive.
That it was.
You're not going to ask me why it was festive? No, I'm just kidding. I'll go into it.
I mean, I'll put it on blast. Trust me, I'll put it on blast. Listen, you don't know me. I'll put it on blast. For those who don't know, yesterday, at the time of this recording, I'm not going to say the exact date because she knows what exact date it is. But yesterday, at the time of this recording, it was the host of the Be Into podcast's birthday. Happy birthday, Darien.
Thank you. If my emoji reactions were on, I would be like, woohoo. And then the fireworks would be popping. And like, that's the time that those reactions would have been useful.
Right. Yeah.
But thank you, bro. Thank you. The Lord has been good. He gave me another year of life. So, and I am definitely one of those people that loves their birthday. I am not one of those people that just says, it's just another day. No, for me, I'm just like, I love it. I just love it. I treat it like a national holiday. Maybe that could be OD for some people, but it's not for me. It's not for me.
Right. No, As it should. It should be a national holiday for you specifically.
Thank you. I appreciate it. See, this is why I keep you around. I love that energy. Just kidding.
I have my moments, I have my moments.
Nah, bro. Listen, for those of you who know Joab, you know what type of guy Joab is. He's just that guy. But not for my birthday though. For yesterday, I felt a lot of love. I was just like, wow. And the birthday wishes and like the blessings, because they were wishes and blessings. I was like, dang, yo, like people really pouring their heart out and really like just wishing me well or asking God to bless me. It was just beautiful. I felt the love yesterday. I laughed like no one's business yesterday, mainly because Devontae was around.
Of course.
Yeah. And if I'm throwing out names that you don't know, well, you'll soon know. And Devontae will be a name that you would know. But let me just take a moment and just welcome you to another episode of the Be in Tune podcast. As I continue to talk about my birthday, let me just put a parentheses and just say welcome. We are so happy to have you back. Yeah, let's keep talking. Let's just keep getting into this. So yes, I did a lot of laughing because Devontae was around. So you already know his laugh is contagious.
His laugh you could hear from a whole other state away. you know it. You will know it's him. You'll know. And not even just that. It's like you could pinpoint where he is in the room, not just based off his laugh, but based off his mannerisms too. His mannerisms follow right after his laugh. So it's like they match up pretty well. So yeah.
I love that like some people in like some of our friends are like, his smile, he smiles with all of his teeth, all of his teeth. You guys are soon going to learn who Devontae is, and that's our brother right there. So we love you, Devontae, and we just can't wait to have you on. So we'll leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it as a mystery for some folks. Okay, Joab. So there was something that you wanted to ask me. You held off, like we were talking as we were setting up, and then you're like, I'm gonna ask you something, and I'm gonna wait till we are recording to ask you this question. So go ahead, sir. You have the mic.
Yes. I do want to put a disclaimer, or rather a spoiler alert, for those who have not seen the movie Inside Out 2, or just even the first one. I'll let you know that we're going to talk about a lot of spoilers, because my good sis has finally watched Inside Out 2. And I watched it like when it first came out, and we got to talk about it. So I'll put a spoiler alert here. Yeah, definitely spoilers we're going to discuss the spoilers, but Darien, I want your insight. So you watched the first one, obviously, right? From your perspective as a therapist, what stood out to you from the first one? Like, what was like the wow factor for the first one? Just the first one.
Well, I'm glad that you asked, Joab. I wanted to sound a little formal. Also, I don't want to be like, a lot of therapists have reacted to these movies, and as they should. And I just did not want to be one of those therapists. But I will talk about it for someone who has, the license, right? The degree, the training of it. But only that, I'm also going to talk about it just as a person. So the first one, what really stood out to me is just like that ending. It's like the pivotal moment when Joy finally realizes like kind of the use of sadness, right? I love that scene so much because, well, first of all, the movie's just genius, right? Like whoever decided to create this movie, right? And like this series, I should say, because now it's 2, right? Genius, absolute genius. I love that someone just decided to like break down emotions to our babies, right? And really have them understand. And I love that adults are like, oh, I get it. This is awesome. It's amazing because you know what? It wasn't broken down to some of us, right? That you have this thing called feelings, you have certain emotions, and depending on certain situations, some emotions are going to step in, right? And they're going to, quote unquote, take control over the control room, right? But I love that also it just emphasized that we can't be happy all the time. Like joy can't be a consistent thing in our lives. Not because it's not possible, it's just it's impossible to achieve due to the fact that you're human, due to the fact that you experience so many issues in life. And so like with the character of Riley moving from one city to the next, that was a big change for her. And even though it could be like exciting and this is great, we're gonna make new friends, right? As like Joy was putting it, it's also scary. Right. And that's where like the emotion of fear comes in. It's also frustrating. That's where the emotion of anger comes in, right? When you see broccoli on pizza, disgust comes in, right? that was in the movie. I love anger. They ruined pizza. First of all, anger is like one of my favorite characters. I find anger adorable.
Hilarious. Yeah.
But then like sadness is also like relevant, right? Because Riley has her moments where she just misses the way things used to be. Dad didn't work as much. Our family unit was more together. So I loved like the ending, like that core, like that pivotal scene of when they were looking at like the core memory and they turned the ball. And sadness identified to joy that behind those joyful core memories, sadness was there. because it made the memory even more like memorable, right? It made it such a core, awesome memory because, Riley just experienced something sad, but was able to come through on the other side to experience joy. So,
yeah. I love that. And like just piggybacking off of what you were just saying too, like I think for the whole like throughout the whole movie, it was all just like they were creating core memories that were each individual emotions. But like you were saying towards the end, it's like some emotions can coexist.
yes.
You can have joy and sadness.
Yes.
You can have disgust and anger. You can have sadness and fear. Like they mix, they intertwine. They're like, and I feel like that's kind of what me, my scientist brain being very deep. It really makes you. It's really complex. Like our emotions are just not as cookie cutter as maybe you're painted out to be. And I think that's what they're trying to aim at. That it is more complex. So yeah, I love the first one. So yeah, definitely have to get that out the way. Now with the second one. The second one. What did you think of the characters, or rather, do you mind listing the characters?
Yes. Okay, so of course we had our characters from the first one. So we had joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust. Now we get introduced to other characters: envy, embarrassment. Was it boredom? Was it
Boredom? Yeah.
boredom? And then of course the one, the only, the one that we a lot of us have a personal relationship with, anxiety.
Yes.
Okay, let me tell you, when the trailer dropped for the second one, I loved that trailer. I love the song that they chose for the trailer, and I love how they just left it as like like what's going to happen next. Like this, the way they were like, "Hi, I'm anxiety." I was like, "Oh shoot." I think I watched it, like the trailer with my sisters, and we were like, "Oh my gosh!" Like it was like plot twist in a sense. Like what's gonna happen now? And it just like makes so much sense that anxiety gets introduced at the age that Riley is, right? And spoiler, Riley is going to enter high school. So this is like right before she enters high school. So makes absolute sense that anxiety just starts to make her way into Riley's life, and also Riley has entered puberty. And I love in the movie that there's there's like a sticker or something that says puberty is messy.
Wait, there was. Oh yeah, there was. And it's so weird too, because I remember at the end of the first movie, because I watched it one after the other. I never watched any of the Inside Out movies at all.
Yeah.
So I went to my cousin and she showed me it on Disney Plus, and that's when we watched the movie a few days later. But in the end of the first one, they had like renovated the board to get prepared for Inside Out 2, and like towards the right, it said puberty, and they were like, "What's puberty?"
Yes.
So they were hinting at it. I didn't realize, but I'm like, wow, that's smart.
Yeah.
That is smart.
And so therefore in the second one, like the buttons going off, like puberty. And it's that just killed me. So the trailer got me excited for the second one. So just to see the second one, just to see like these things happening, I was like, first of all, this is just a great example of developmental psych, right? It's a great showcasing of like what's happening biologically to you when you enter puberty. So this is a great thing to show the kids, but then also it's just a great thing to show to kids what is happening when your mind is moving from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. So around age 11, right? From what I remember from my developmental psychology days. Okay. So don't be out here quoting me, quote like a legit person. Anywho, around age 11, a child's mind goes from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. What does that mean? Concrete, like they see things for what they are. Sky is blue, right? Mom, dad, right? Us, my sibling. But now when it goes to abstract thinking, it's like that's where like critical thinking happens, right? Now it's like when they start to ask the question of what makes the sky blue? Like now they have like kind of like that capacity to kind of explore that answer of like why is the sky blue? This is also what I remember in science class around that age that I'm starting to learn about like the weather and precipitation and all that, because now my brain can handle this abstract way of thinking. Not everything is so right in my face concrete, but I can think beyond. I'm starting to think beyond. And then, of course, when you're a teenager, you're thinking very existentially, like, what is life? Right. It also happens in college years, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just love that the movie was just showcasing that. Like, it was showcasing more like Riley's, like the different emotions that Riley's experiencing. Because Riley's not sticking with the 5 emotions that we know, right? The 5 emotions that she was very familiar with sadness, joy, anger, disgust, and fear. Now, like, interesting enough, fear and anxiety, they're on the same spectrum.
Wait, when I tell you, what was it? Fear said, anxiety said something, and then fear said, I have a feeling I'm gonna like her.
Yes.
And I just knew. I'm like, yo, like that's
you would like her.
Right, because they play so much off of each other, and I'm just like, that is so like genius, because it's true. Fear and anxiety, they literally work hand in hand. So I love that they touched on that. Love that.
Notice how sadness and embarrassment too had like a connection.
Yeah.
Because like when something embarrassing happens, you usually feel sad about it too. So like they would be in the same like wavelength. And actually joy and anxiety were on a similar wavelength too, just because of the high energy. So, but oh, you didn't think of it that way.
Wow. Oh wow. I'm still putting the pieces together, but yeah, like it makes sense. It definitely makes sense.
I mean, this is also my perspective too. So, like I said, it's not sound, but yeah. So, but yes, fear and anxiety. So now it's like you're not just experiencing an emotion, fear. Now you can say, "Oh, I'm actually anxious about said thing that's making me fearful," or "I am so worried." Another word, right? I'm worried about what's going to happen in the future. It's just like I just love it. I love that it just introduced a whole bunch of more emotions, and it was like now we're gonna take this to a whole other level. And interesting enough, like the work that I do, I find myself kind of teaching different emotions to folks, right? Like we can stick to our core emotions, but we can also expand, right, on off of those core emotions. Like you are fearful, you're experiencing fear, but do you think you're more anxious about this particular event that's happening in your life, right? Or sometimes some people can go from the different emotions, right, and work their way down to the core. I was embarrassed about the situation, which really ultimately I was just sad that this situation occurred, right? I was angry, but really in my anger, I was just sad about X, Y, and Z. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like it's just so complex. It's so complex, but yeah, like there's just so many different layers to it, But like for a kids movie, they really did a great job with explaining it. A great job. If I can, I do like there were certain parts I want to see if you were able to like kind of pick on those too, just from like my perspective. So do you remember the scene? Well, a few things stood out to me, but do you remember the scene where the very bottom of like their HQ, which is like their control center, they would take an elevator down to what would be called, I guess, like their core beliefs. Those little strings. Yeah. Do you remember the scene after anxiety like fully took over and then Joy and the rest of the gang, they're trying to make their way back up to that room, but the only way they can get there was to like cause like an avalanche of all like the core beliefs to like propel them into that room. I kind of saw that as like flooding in a sense, because right after that happened, like a literal flood, you know, because like right after that happened, I think that's when Riley started to have the panic attack, or right before. So like I kind of saw that as like all your core beliefs, everything that you know about yourself, good and quote unquote bad, start to flow in together into your core beliefs, and that causes you to like not be able to think or not be able to process, and you know that's what we know as like flooding. Hopefully like that's like kind of like accurate.
You did a very good job with it. Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. My therapist would be proud of me. I just thought that was interesting. Like just the small things I see with just even that. But what do you thought? What were your thoughts of like the core belief strings? Like, what do you think about that?
First of all, I love that was showcased of like, this is what happens and this is where a belief is, like how a belief is established. And we talked about this on the pod. We actually talked about core beliefs. We talked about negative core beliefs. And I said that our core beliefs are learned, right? Like learned experiences. They are taught to us. It's not something that you're born with. So if you didn't understand on what on earth I was talking about in that podcast, just go watch Inside Out 2. There you go. You'll see in the movie how Riley has certain experiences, and so based off of those experiences developed this idea, this lens on how she views herself, others, and the environment around her, which is aka your beliefs, right? And then like how it's established. And I loved the imagery. Like they would just play it like as if it was like a guitar string or like a harp string, and you just play it and you would hear what the belief was.
Yeah.
I'm a good friend. I am a happy person. I can do this. I am capable. One of my favorite scenes in this movie was, and Joab, you really need to put the spoiler like across the screen.
I will. Trust I will.
What I loved was, my favorite scene was when Joy and Anxiety are having a conversation. They snuck into like the room where Anxiety is making all the like other like the people work, and just say, we need you to come up with like so many possible scenarios that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
And
yes.
Joy starts to challenge it. And there was this one based off of the situation, Anxiety goes, what happens if Riley does score more than this person and she hates her? And Joy goes, what happens if Riley does score more and she respects her? I was like, come through with the challenging of like the negative thoughts, like come through. I loved it. It was like the back and forth was just amazing. And I also really loved the fact that it showcased the misguidance of anxiety.
Yeah.
Because here Anxiety was working overtime to establish a new belief, and Anxiety in the movie thought that it was going to be a really like perfect belief, but it ended up being, I'm not enough. Because then that goes into our past discussion of perfectionism. Because we try over and over and over and over again to get things done perfectly. I can be successful in this relationship, or this relationship will be perfect if I only do X, Y, and Z, right? Everything will go perfectly at my job if I actually cut down the hours that I sleep and put more effort into the work that I am doing. Okay. I actually will look perfect if I actually go overboard on my nutrition, overboard on my workouts. I have a pain in my leg. It's okay. No pain, no gain. Okay. But that pain has been persisting for like the last 3 days. All right. but go ahead and go do your leg workout. The pain's there. But that perfectionist desire, right? You saw anxiety just striving for perfect. You saw anxiety saying, if we take care of these scenarios, right, everything's going to be good. But you know what happened in the movie? You saw more situations develop.
Yeah.
And anxiety finally gets to like the point of, I've created a new belief, a new image. And when she played it, all we kept hearing was, I'm not enough. I'm not enough.
Oh my gosh.
But going back to what you were saying about the panic attack, because that's what you asked me, and I just like went completely over to a whole other landscape here. Going back, the scene that led to Riley getting into the penalty box, I was like, is she about to have a panic attack? And I was the flooding, because when disgust tells joy, that's a lot of emotions. That's gonna cause like I don't think the disgust said flood, but it's gonna cause like a wave. Like, are we gonna ride a wave? Exactly.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna do. I was like, that's what I was just thinking. I was like, here it comes. And the way that they depict a panic attack.
Literally all your emotions fighting for the control. Like they did. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I think it was at that part of the movie that I'm like, I was trying to like, I was going into like, you know what? It is a kid's show. I am not going to like let it take over me.
But it took over.
When it came to that scene, I was like, dang it. It was so raw.
It was. And the scene that I thought was like really, really raw, because I love the fact they used that word, was when anxiety was moving back and forth and Joy was like, let go, and you saw the tear.
Yes.
I was like, I don't know how many people can relate to this. I felt that. I was like, dang. I said, not this kid's movie trying to come for me.
Right. And then what does Joy say? Joy was like, you can't choose who Riley is. And I'm just like, wow. Because the whole theme of anxiety, and I even brought this up to my therapist after I watched it. But like, it really gave me a perspective of what anxiety really is. Anxiety is not, and especially how the movie describes it, anxiety is not your enemy. It is like a defense mechanism, but sometimes like it like in the movie, it goes overboard and does too much where it does become a threat to you. You know, and I love how even in the end of the movie where Joy was like, or anxiety was like, you know, like, oh, like she made the so-and-so, but like what happens if X, Y, and Z? And then Joy puts anxiety into like a massage comfort chair just to relax her. Like, it's okay, those things could happen, but we're not there yet. Let's just take a sit back and like relax. So I love that. I absolutely love that. And
yeah,
if I could piggyback off of like the panic attack scene, the other thing that I noticed, I'm just like, yo, like the writers, I'm getting gassed up. Like, I'm getting geeked right now because it was so good. It was so good. But with the panic attack scene, while she was going with the panic attack and grabbing her chest, like as all the emotions came together and even anxiety hugged the core belief, you start to see Riley slow down her breathing. But what does she do after that? She feels the bench below her. She hears like the skates on the rink. She smells, you know, the ice rink. She looks up and sees a sun. Those are, I think, what they call grounding techniques, like what you do right after a panic attack. Darien. When I tell you, I'm just like, wow.
Yes. Wow. I love that. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Oh, I got so excited. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I was like, oh, she's grounding. That's all I remember just thinking. I was like, oh, she's grounding. And I love too that, and in that portion, that's where sadness tells joy. Riley needs you.
Yeah.
So yes, the ground that was well done. Like when her little hand went, I was like, oh shoot. I said, not them teaching what is a good grounding technique.
Right.
What you should do
I'm like, that's so good. That it's so good. So good.
It is. And for those of you who don't know what that is, because there's some people who don't, right? So if you watch the movie, just like Joab so beautifully described, right? After the panic attack, when Riley is able to regulate, she starts to ground herself. But so what does that mean? It means like literally bring like just touching what is near you, right? Taking a moment to breathe, come back to center. Have your ears focus on what you can currently hear. Have your eyes see what is exactly in front of you. Have your nose breathe in, smell whatever is present. And hopefully it's something pleasant, not something unpleasant. You know what I'm saying? But that's going to bring you back. What can you also feel? Too. I would imagine too that in this fictional movie, Riley being in an ice skating rink, she felt the cold,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is also very good. That's why when people have like they cry, right, and their faces either get red or it gets kind of blotchy, it's very good to what? Splash cold water on your face. It just helps regulate you. That's what grounding techniques are. It's just regulating you. And I don't know if I taught this actually in a past pod, but there's a DBT skill it's always going back to DBT. There's a DBT skill that is called the TIPP skill. And this skill is just fantastic. Shall I break it down, Joab?
Please do.
Okay. So, a TIPP skill, it's TIPP, right? Two P's. Sometimes it's written with one P, but it's representing two. It's really four skills in one, as I like to break it down. It's an acronym. So the T is for temperature. What you want to do is you want to regulate your body temperature. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, and going back to the movie, when Riley was experiencing that panic attack, her body temperature was actually going high. It was going up. So when something is hot is going up, what you have to do, you have to bring it down. You have to cool it down. So DBT says that it's really good if you're experiencing such intense emotions and you're getting kind of hot to do a dive. What does that mean? It means to grab a bowl and fill it up with ice cold water, like fill it up with water and put some ice in it, and actually put your face in the water and hold your breath for 30 seconds. Now, if you have a heart condition, and it even says this in the workbook, if you have a heart condition, don't do it, right? Discuss it with your doctor, right? Because it's going to bring your body temperature down, right? And it's going to lower your heart rate. Another way to do this, and I love this, I've had some clients in the past tell me that they would get like those ice packs that you break and then it becomes cold. So you can be walking around with some ice packs that are not hot, but the minute like you crack it, it turns cool. You put it on your face. I've suggested people that if you are starting to, notice that your breathing is getting a little shallow, you're starting to get overwhelmed, excuse yourself and go into the bathroom and splash some cold water on your face. Okay. If you live in New England where it's winter 90% of the time, no, I'm just kidding. I'm being dramatic. All right. But if you live in a cold area, right, or if it's winter, step outside. That coldness is just going to bring the heart rate down and it's going to bring the temperature down. And that is what you need. And you're going to be just like Riley, where you're going to feel the ground beneath you. The I in TIPP is intense exercise. So the idea of this is not for you to just block out an hour of your time to do exercise, but the minute that you start to feel kind of overwhelmed, maybe confused, right? Your mind is starting to race and you just don't know, and you're getting somewhat agitated, or even if you're angry, right, or upset about something, that would be a good time for you to break out into intense exercise. Whether it be do push-ups suddenly really fast, right? Jog in place, or change into your clothes and go for a run. I also I have told folks in the past too that it's okay to say, you know what, I'm going to just get up from my desk. I'm working from home. I'm going to change into some nice yoga clothes, right? And I'm going to do some stretching, right? That's not fully like that would by definition wouldn't be considered intense exercise, but it's getting your body moving. And exercise is very important, right? It's very important when it comes to regulating emotions. Okay, because that adrenaline rush actually does something. What does it do? It actually brings your body temperature down. You're gonna get hot a little bit because you're gonna sweat, but eventually when you're done, you're gonna feel that coolness. The next letter in the acronym is paced breathing, and this one is my favorite. Okay, so what you're gonna do is it's all about exhaling longer than you inhale. So it's a breathing exercise. So you inhale for the count of 5 and you exhale for the count of 7. I highly recommend that when you're exhaling, don't exhale quickly because you're going to get dizzy, right? But don't exhale too slowly that you're going to like want to pass out, right? But exhale at a pace that, again, that exhale is just, it's controlled, but it's slow and it's longer than your inhales. Because you know what's the science that's happening here? Your brain is actually doing something. So when we are activated emotionally, right? The activation part of our brain, so in our nervous system, right? The activation part of our brain, it gets activated. It's called the sympathetic nervous system, right? I love that Joab is nodding, so that means I'm saying things correctly, beautifully, right? That is the activation part of your brain. And interesting enough, when you inhale, you're actually activating yourself. So if you're already somewhat activated, let's say agitated, right? Feeling emotionally overwhelmed, whatever the feelings may be, what you want to do, you want to deactivate yourself. So what you're going to do is you're going to target the parasympathetic, right? That is the deactivation part of your brain. And guess what does that? The exhales that you take. If your exhales are longer than your inhales, I promise you, you're going to start to feel calm. In the past, when I've done this with past clients, and the reason why I'm saying past is because I don't want anyone to ever think I'm talking about current. I don't do that. I'm just putting a little disclaimer in there, right? In the past, I've had folks say, "Ooh, I'm sleepy," which is good. So if you struggle with sleep, I highly recommend doing this breathing exercise. I like to add a little twist to it. I like to add a hold. So what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
When you're breathing, when you're inhaling, before you exhale, you hold your breath. And let me tell you, that feels good because that exhale after holding your breath, whew, you're going to let go of generational trauma. No, I'm just kidding. But you're going to feel very, very good about yourself. And you're going to feel very relaxed. And if you start to get sleepy, that's a good sign. That means that you're actually entering a state of relaxation. It may not be that good if you have a meeting, so you may want to, pep yourself up after that. And the last P is paired muscle relaxation. So similar to that pace breathing exercise that you did, right? You don't have to worry about your exhales being longer than your inhales. What you want to do is you want to inhale and tense up your body as much as you can without feeling pain. And then you say the word relax and you let go. So it's like a sudden drop, right? That's what you're doing. So you're going to breathe in, relax, and let it out. What that's going to do is one's going to kind of massage your shoulders, but that is another way of bringing your body temperature from here to down here. In the past, some folks have loved doing that when they've noticed that they're getting anxious, right? So what's interesting? There's different types of anxious behaviors that one can engage in: anxiety attacks and some panic attacks, right? And what's the difference between the two? A panic attack is sudden; it seems to come out of nowhere. Anxiety attacks is like slow, and it's building and it's building and building. Right. And it tends to kind of come out a little bit more in your moods, right? That you can just be more irritable. It affects your sleep, right? It affects your eating, right? And the panic attack is what we see in Inside Out too with Riley. Her heart rate, right? Beating super fast, right? Her breathing getting very shallow. It's like she felt, I would imagine, she didn't say this, but she felt like her world was ending.
Mm-hmm.
And those of you who have experienced a panic attack, I don't need to break this down to you. You already know what it is. Okay. But what I've heard in the past is some folks say, wow, this is really good when I'm noticing I'm a little off. I'm noticing that I'm starting to get somewhat jittery there. Right. So try those exercises. It's called TIPP, right? It's DBT's. It falls under the DBT's crisis survival skills. Joab, I was listening to a past pod, and you and I were talking about the crisis survival skills, and I went over one of them, and so this is another that falls under that category, and it's called TIPP, and I highly recommend it. All right, I feel like I said a lot there.
I know you said enough. I love it. You know, not to get into the biomedical side of it, because you mentioned the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, and you know, I kind of had a flashback of, what was it? Anatomy, physiology, yeah, A&P, and hated the class. Terrible class. Like,
I almost failed it.
Oh, I was with you there. I don't know how I passed, but I did, by the grace of God. By the grace of God. But no, like, I remember just how fascinating just the nervous system really, it's so complex and effective, you know. And I remember, like, well, that's not like the bulk of my research, but what you said is with like working out specifically. So with working out, when you mentioned, like, you know, you'll sweat, like you'll get hot, but like afterwards you'll cool down. It's funny that you say that, because like with the sweat, like that's, you know, that's the body's like natural thermal regulator is sweat. You know, your sweat will come out of your pores, you know, lay on your skin, and through that, like, it will start to cool down your body temperature by the sweat laying on your skin and of course evaporating. So yeah, like it's so funny that you mentioned like the biological response of sweat doing that, but what that also does to your emotions, you know, that helps you come down once it cools down your bodily temperature, your mind also starts to relax as well. So I thought that was really interesting as well. That was very interesting.
Okay, so, science, I hear you.
Like, look at our worlds combining. Come on.
This is
That's
true.
dope.
That's dope. It. I also want to go back to something that you said. You said that you talked to your therapist after you saw the movie, and you said that anxiety isn't the enemy. And I too was listening to another past pod, and I remember talking about anxiety. I said, that little sucker, what it is. But I was highlighting how anxiety can lie to you. But I really do love this perspective and this take on anxiety. I was like, wow, I really appreciate that they didn't make anxiety the villain.
Yeah.
In this story, I thought anxiety was going to be the villain. In a way, anxiety kind of was the antagonist in this story. And it wasn't really a villain. It's what we experience. Anxiety, in that high energy that I said you could relate with joy, in some moments it could be like, oh, that was a good idea. However, let's calm down. We will deal with that accordingly. We don't need to amp up on that. We will deal with it accordingly. And so I really love that you highlighted that, because I was like, yeah, it's not the villain. It's what we experience. I think a lot of us, though, because we experience some emotions, we want to categorize ourselves as good or bad because we experience some emotions. Sorry. And that's not the case. It's called you being human. Now, the behaviors that you engage in, right, based off of some unpleasant emotions, right, can determine whether your actions were good or bad. That's when we can get kind of discriminatory, right? Like engage in that judgment, right? Someone steals from someone else, that's not good. That's not a good behavior. That's a bad behavior, right? And then, of course, you know, everyone has their reasons for things and such. And I think that that's where we can be open-minded and like really hold the space for different perspectives and different reasonings. But going back to what I was saying, right? Because you experience certain emotions does not make you good or bad. Like those emotions don't categorize you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They don't. I've had some people in the past tell me, listen, I've got anger problems. Okay. And the shame that is attached to that is strong. And
Yeah.
shame is you thinking you are bad. Guilt is when you do something bad. Shame is you think you are bad. And to get the person out of that shame cycle can be challenging because they feel certain feelings. They're like, I shouldn't be feeling this. Why do you think you shouldn't? You do. There's so many emotions out there. It is what it is. It's called you being human. What you do with this indeed does matter. You can feel something, but it doesn't always mean that you have to act on it.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel something and it doesn't mean that it makes you bad. It doesn't. It's all about what you do with it. And so I think that's just very important to highlight. Like you experiencing certain emotions, right, doesn't categorize you. What you do with it will, right? It happens, right? And hopefully you can engage in a behavior that is considered to be what I like to call effective, or really what DBT calls, that's where I get it from. Effective. What does that mean? What works? What needs to get done? What is going to move you along? I don't know if I want to, I'm going to jump here. I've had in the past, people experience suicidal ideations, right? And I've always said, and those who have said, like, I have them, and it's kind of like they look at me like, are you going to pick up the red phone and just have me like sent to the hospital right away? And I always say, well, is there a behavior associated with this? Is there a plan? Is there a plan that we're planning to put in motion? Because that's going to determine whether I'm going to pick up that metaphoric phone or not. Because we can think about something, we can have feelings about something in an experience, and it doesn't mean that you're going to act on it, and it doesn't mean that you have to act on it. Does that make sense? I hope you do you think people are going to pick up what I'm dropping here, Joab?
No, that definitely makes sense. Yeah. And I feel like I've always heard that with like those who suffer from suicidal ideation, where it's like the thought versus like the plan. Like, you know, once you hear the plan, it's like, okay, like let's look into this a lot more deeper. So yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting enough, suicidal ideations are more common than people think.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like there's a stigma behind it because we think like you were just breaking down just the topic of talking about suicide. It's always automatic, like the plan is already enact, but I think it's more to it than just that. So I feel like there is a stigma, like we don't really explore it that much.
We don't. It's something that we are very fearful talking about. And I smiled because I was like, let me pick an emotion from inside out. But it's a fearful topic, and it needs to be discussed. So that's why I love it when we have like the awareness months, right? And people are just having these discussions, or people are sharing, you know, their testimonies about it. It's like, thank you for being brave enough to have the conversation, because we need to have the conversation. Because the ideations are way more common than people think.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think I kind of like want to end. I didn't want to end right here, but I want to end with this statement. It's so interesting because I had a completely different topic in mind.
I know.
But no, I love that we had this conversation, and I love that I got to teach a little bit, have a little teaching moment. But I want to end with this. Going back to Inside Out 2, it ended with hope. And I'm going to break it down because I love the ending of it, where Joy's like, this is our girl Riley, and we love her for exactly who she is, and no matter what she experiences. That is such a beautiful, like, hopeful statement. If you think about it, because a lot of us, we're struggling with something. We are in a season of struggling, right? We're in a season where things are just not working out. We're in a season where we're looking at ourselves, or we're categorizing ourselves as like good or bad, right? Or we're categorizing ourselves as bad. The shame is just intense. And I love that in this movie, first of all, the emotions hugging one another. That is like an act of like comfort, right? That's an act of reassurance. But it's also an act of like hope too. Like things are going to be okay. And that's what really hope is. Hope is like just like that beautiful reminder of like, it's going to be all right. You're going to be okay. You're going to survive whatever it is that you're struggling with. So if there's anyone who's listening to this and you are in a season of your life that you're just like, I don't know. And you don't know because whatever has happened, right? Maybe something bad has occurred. Maybe you've experienced a loss, right? Maybe you're experiencing such hardship. Maybe the dreams that you have for yourself fell through. Maybe the job that you wanted didn't pan out, right? Maybe you lost your job, and my heart goes out to you, all right, with that. Maybe you've lost someone dear in your life, or maybe your own mental health has taken like a severe turn, right? I just want to be a little bit cliche here and say it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. There's hope. And you can get mad at me for me saying that. That's all right. Feel your feelings. Feel your feelings. Feel your feelings. Because you have that right to feel your feelings. I just want you to know that. So you feel your feelings. And I know I'm very calm wearing my imperfectly tuned t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? I'm very relaxed. I just drank a matcha latte. But there's hope. There's always hope. It's going to be okay. And I've said this in the past too. If you need help, reach out because help is there. Reach out. You matter. All right, Joab. Any final thoughts on your end?
Yeah, just honestly, if you haven't seen Inside Out, or even if you look at it and you think like it's a kid's show, like I promise you, like you'll be surprised how much you really will learn, not just about just emotions, but I feel like you will learn a lot more about yourself too. Because like I said, I always had this preconceived notion of what anxiety really is, and the perspective it gave was something that honestly I really needed to help me kind of like control, quote unquote, or better maintain my emotions, I would say. So I think it's definitely worth it. It's definitely important. It's definitely an important discussion, and an ongoing discussion at that. So yeah, I think co-signing with what Darien was saying, like feel your feelings, but also get to know your feelings as well. I think that's also important. And your people are here for you. So
Yeah. With that, I say be in tune. Peace.